Next fight at heavyweight, we have a couple of big heavyweights. Marcin Tybura coming in taking on Greg Hardy. And I say big heavyweights because Marcin Tybura last weighed in at 263 pounds in his fight against Big Ben Rothwell. And for Greg Hardy coming in at 264.5, it was a great win not that long ago on the Halloween card where he took on Maurice Green, picked up a big knockout win there. And for Greg Hardy, Matt, I know the record says 7-2 with 1 no contest, but the no contest was Puffergate against Ben Sassoli, who's in jail now. Well, he's in prison. And in his loss, you look at the one against Alan Crowder, disqualification due to an illegal knee, and then the other loss where he was fighting Alexander Volkov in a fight that was halfway competitive. I mean, I know he hurt his hand in that one, but still, he can stick behind the jab. He can kind of walk around. We saw him do that in the fight against Yorgan De Castro. It didn't really look like he wanted to get in range and taste some of that power from De Castro, who had success in the first round until he just stopped doing anything in the second and third.
Not what you love to see.
It's been a weird ride for Greg Hardy since he debuted in the UFC on the same card that TJ Dillashaw popped for EPO against Henry Cejudo. But overall, a winning record for Hardy, and this is definitely his second biggest test so far in the UFC, taking on the former M1 global champion, Marcin Tybura, who, I gotta say, low-key, I love watching Marcin Tybura fight. It's weird, he's one of my guys, but this is going to be his fourth fight in 2020, and so far he's won all three. He's passed the test with flying colors. He beat Sergey Spivak at the start of the year. He beat Max Grecian, who was stepping in on short notice to replace an absolute lightning bolt in Alexander Romanov, and then Ben Rothwell in his last fight. And Matt, while Big Ben hasn't been that great in the return to the UFC, I mean, he picked up a win over Vince St. Preux in a very forgettable fight. Marcin Tybura has looked good in 2020.
Okay, I just think we have to address something that Craig just said. Marcin Tybura is not one of his guys. I've heard Craig rag on Marcin Tybura fights quite a few times. Neither one of us were excited for that Ben Rothwell fight. Quit lying to people.
Stylistically, this fight on paper is one of the more boring fights you can make at heavyweight, but you have to see these guys, and it has to happen.
He did look great, though, and it was a great fight, and it was a fight that we kind of predicted wrong, not based on who was going to win, but just how entertaining the fight was going to be. It ended up turning into a really fun fight at heavyweight, and this is what it really comes down to for Greg Hardy. We've only seen him one time against a high-level fighter, and that was Alexander Volkov, and we didn't really see the best version of Volkov in that fight. It was one of those kind of low-risk or high-risk, low-rewards. If you're Volkov, okay, if you get knocked out by Greg Hardy, you're a scrub, and if you beat him, no one really cares. You just beat Greg Hardy. So Tybura is going to be his first introduction into fighting one of those good, kind of grimier grappling style fighters in the heavyweight division. Marcin Tybura, it's very hard to look good against him because he does. He just has this constant pressure. He's a decent striker. He has good dirty boxing, and his grappling is quite overwhelming for most guys.
He's the type of guy that presses you up against the cage, closes his eyes and puts his face right in your chest, and then just pushes forward and tries to go for head position. He's like a dog on the couch looking for your affection. That's the way Marcin Tybura fights for the most part. And it's really interesting because, again, for Greg Hardy, one of the bigger heavyweights that you're going to find. Marcin Tybura, maybe not so. Again, I accentuated the fact that he's weighed in heavy in the past, but he's normally in that average, 250 to 260 range, and coming in here on a big 3-fight win streak. So, Matt, we have a look at this one. Tybura with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in his back pocket. And I know a lot of people, myself included, would say, well, Marcin Tybura, he's won 3 in a row. How'd he fare before that? Well, he's 1-4 on a bad streak, but you look at the losses. Fabrizio Verdum in a fight where, well, you're taking on a former champ back in 2017. Bad things are going to happen. Then he fights Derek Lewis. He gets finished in that fight. But just like we said in the Aiemann Zahabi fight against Ricardo Ramos earlier on tonight, UFC 217, Zahabi was doing great until 2 spinning back elbows landed and knocked him out. Marcin Tybura was doing great until Derek Lewis just kept popping up and then knocked him out. Then for Tybura, he fights Stefan Struve. Well, you're going to beat Stefan Struve. I mean, Tai Tuivasa knocked him out in the fight and after the fight there, not that long ago this year. He loses to Shamil Abdurakhimov. That's a tricky one. I mean, as Corey Anderson would say, there's levels to this game. And listen, Abdurakhimov beats Tybura. Blades beats Abdurakhimov at that game. So never match up Marcin Tybura with Curtis Blades, please. And then for Tybura, he loses to Augusto Sakai in a fight where he's knocked out in the first minute. He gets kicked, he gets punched, and he's asleep. So, Matt, we look at Tybura on the run. We look at Greg Hardy, 2 nice wins in a row. But Yorgan De Castro, who was compromised for about 2/3 of that fight. And Maurice Green, who Maurice Green changed his life totally to devote it to mixed martial arts, moved into Jackson Wink, living in the dorms, getting ready for it. But Greg Hardy was better than him. And I mean, that was just...
It's not much of a hot take,
no,
right?
That was just what was going to happen. The Topology votes and, the odds in this one really surprised me because out of 735 total votes, 57% have Tybura, 73% have him to win by decision. For the 43% of fans that pick Greg Hardy, 77% have him to win by knockout. And if we look at the odds, Greg Hardy's the favorite. Open a plus 115 underdog. He's now a minus 122 favorite. For Marcin Tybura, open a minus 135. He's now at a plus 102. So, Matt, I don't know if it's one of those circumstances where we see this. I know we see it. Sometimes Conor McGregor pops up in the pound-for-pound rankings and then goes away. But sometimes... certain names have that allure of, well, geez, I know that guy, so I'm going to put my money on him. I don't know if this is one of those circumstances. I really don't, because we have a difference between the way the odds are going and the way the Topology votes are going. I love it when that happens, by the way. What's your take on this fight? Because it feels like A, clash of styles, but B, there's a definite path to victory for both guys here.
Oh, of course. Now, here's the problem. The path to victory for Greg Hardy is land a right hand. And it's really hard when that's your only avenue for victory, because I don't see Greg Hardy out-grappling Marcin Tybura. That's never going to happen. He's not going to outlast him and out-jab him and work his way to a 3-round decision against Tybura. So it comes down to, can Greg Hardy eventually find the shot that's going to knock out a guy like Tybura? And again, it's not an impossible task. People have been able to do it. Augusto Sakai, of course, able to knock him out quite fast. But if Marcin Tybura can really just withstand that first 3-4 minute rush, it's not like Greg Hardy has the cardio of Derek Lewis where he can keep his power so late into a fight. If Tybura is able to take down Greg Hardy even one time, I have to say this, he's going to destroy him on the ground. I don't see these two being very competitive if it does come down to grappling. It's really hard for me to pick against Tybura, not only to do with I just like his overall MMA game, the amount of experience that he's had against high-level competition. You might not always beat those top guys, but at least getting in there does teach you quite a bit. I like Tybura in this one.
I mean, just like that old Counting Crow song, Marcin Tybura is really just hanging around this town on a corner. I don't know what the Polish version of that song is. Maybe Axon sings it. But Matt, if I'm looking at this one, I agree with you. I mean, Marcin Tybura, that slow, grinding, grimy style, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in his back pocket. He's definitely taken on names like this before. He's lost to some good grapplers. He's lost to some good strikers. And I could see him just wearing on Greg Hardy. Now, if Hardy can withstand the first takedown, and if we get into the second round where Hardy had a little bit of success on the feet, he can mix things up, I'd be interested to see what the odds are at after the first round. But overall, in a 3-round fight, I have Marcin Tybura to win this one. I'm really looking forward to it. It really adds a bit of intrigue into the lower tier of this heavyweight division from 10 down. I mean, again, just like women's flyweight, a couple of wins, you're right up there near the top. I mean, Cyril Gahn picking up a big win over Junior Dos Santos really opened a lot of eyes as to what can be done in this heavyweight division. But that said, Matt, we both have Poland's Marcin Tybura to get the win. Matt, we have a really busy card this weekend, 15 fights in total. So keep it locked in with the playlist over there. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.